This is the Conscious Hour. If you've been watching the news and seeing what's going on, you've got Trump in Davos talking about this coalition of people that have come together with billions of dollars, and they're going to be building out this beautiful, beautiful future city. Well, the irony of this whole thing is in February, I think it was like the 4th of February of 2024, I found a video. Actually, it was a live stream, and I recorded it of Jared Kushner at Harvard University talking about the future city of Gaza. So I did a deep dive, and I really wanted to find out why are they doing this now. We know on the books there's always been the Greater Israel Project. It's been there since before 1948. And so I found some very interesting things. There were six major projects that they were going to do. One of them is, of course, is the future city of Gaza. Okay, there was a 7 trillion gallon liquefied natural gas that they found offshore. Of course, they grabbed that. And there's the new Ben Gurion Canal, which was on the books. But the irony of that was they were going to use atomic bombs to blow the soil up so they could dig basically easier a two-way traffic to compete with the Suez Canal. There was what they called the it was the railroad hub, the Trans-Asia Railroad Hub. And there was another one that was very interesting. It was a $3.4 billion grant that was given to Intel to build a $25 billion microchip factory. So February, I saw Jared Kushner on that, and then the third week of April, he was in Gaza promoting waterfront real estate. Irony. Look what they're talking about now. Okay. They just had it at Davos. They're getting all these people together, partners. They've got $40 billion. Add another zero onto it. There's $400 billion to develop the entire coastline and expand Israel to all the places that are occupying now. 400 billion is the number. But the one that shocked me is the numbers when they were talking about how many people were dying or how many people were dead. On August 26th, there was an announcement by Netanyahu. It was I got it on a BBC radio broadcast, and it said that basically the 2.1 million Palestinians have to leave. And I said to myself, well, where are they going to go? Into the sea? Okay, well, that was 2.1 million. And then about a month and a half ago, Netanyahu came back and said 1.1 million of the Palestinians have to leave. That means a million people are missing. A million. Okay, so I just held those numbers to my heart. I didn't say anything because I couldn't, document anything. And then Francisca Albanese, incredible being, true to the light, true to exposing and being accountable. Sure, numbers have come up at 680,000 Palestinians are dead. Children, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, and everything. Okay, that means that there's 1.1 million plus another two. There's about 1.3 million people, Palestinians, and they want to build on this. So let's get into this conversation right here with Colonel Wilkerson and listen to what they're saying now because it's really key, but listen closely.
A very, was it the size of Washington, D.C., a prison camp that just experienced genocide, the size of Washington, D.C. So, Colonel Wilkerson, your reactions to all of this?
I think the Omani foreign minister, who represents a country who, in my view, is the quintessential diplomatic entity within the Levant, was right when he said categorically the cause of instability in this region is Israel. And our press didn't pay a lot of attention to that, understandably so. Our press is pretty much owned by Israel, or at least significant editorial boards and sections of it are. New York Times leading the pack. He's right. He's absolutely right. And increasingly, people are being unable to deny that, whether it's to their own oppressed publics or whether it's to themselves or whether it's to both is really irrelevant. They're beginning to realize that that is the problem. So, as was just hinted at or said, I guess, the Abraham Accords are dead. Any kind of reconciliation between the Arab states and Israel, I think is dead, at least for a generation, if Israel even exists that long. I don't think it will. A more important point to me, though, is in this Gaza thing, we are seeing what I call an attempt to build a Hobbesian world in its most garish, raw concept. What we're seeing is Bibi Netanyahu making statements, for example, like, well, phase two is really irrelevant to me. I don't see anything happening in phase two that would be relevant to me at all. At the same time, Francesca Albanese, for example, has released a report that says, for example, among other criticisms, harsh criticisms of Israel, that probably underneath the rubble we are going to bury not 60,000, not 70,000, not even 100,000, but closer to 500 to 600,000 dead Palestinians, 75% of whom are women and children. I have no problem believing that because I've worked with, and I know it's a lot more sophisticated now. I'd love to see somebody in Hexas Pentagon do this. I suspect they have. You take the tool that the military has essentially for bomb damage assessment. It's much more sophisticated than that, and it is sophisticated. And you look at the material that the homes were built of, that the streets were built of, that the basements are fabricated from, that the water system is made of. You look at all the infrastructure, in other words, in minute detail. You look at the density of the population. You look at the approximate area in terms of its whole situation. You look at the ordnance dropped on them, and you don't just look at 250 and 500 and 1,500 and 2,750, 2,000 pound bombs, all of which have been dropped relentlessly. You also look at 155 howitzers and howitzers bigger, howitzers smaller. You look at artillery, in other words. You look at mortars, 4 deuces, 181s. You look at everything in terms of ordnance delivered in both quantity and method. And you look at other factors that impact on anything like this. There are about 10 criteria. And you can say pretty much within 3 to 5% how many people are dead. And if you do that, you'll find at least 200,000. So what are we going to do with these 200 dead people? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. A bulldozer like the one that killed Rachel Corrie, and many more of them are going to go out over this territory and smooth it over. And we're going to have a graveyard for at least 100, maybe 200,000, maybe more Palestinians, 75% of whom are women and children. That's what Bibi's plan is. That's what Trump understands, I'm pretty sure, and apparently exceeds to. That's what we're going to do. This is probably the greatest atrocity in this century to this point, and I've looked at Sudan, I've looked at a lot of other places. This is, and it grows in its dimensions because the empire has enabled it fully. That, I think.
So, with that thought, folks, there's 680,000 people dead. That's the official number from Francisca. But it's not over. Because if you look at the entire coastline, the Greater Israel Expansion Project is the entire coastline. I found a document and I can't find it. I was looking for it. They estimate to do the future project, which was the Greater Israel Expansion Project, all the way up the coastline, which would have a joint U.S. Air Force base in Israel at the corner there. They're going into Lebanon, right? They're taking all this area. That whole area there is going to be developed. And the number I found was $400 billion that was not, it was committed, not bankrolled, but that's the estimate for the entire coastline to be redone as a new Israel. Think about that. This is the Conscious Hour. Please share this, hit your like button, and most of all, please donate to the 501c3, which is the Conscious Hour. The more funding I get in, the more material I can put out. Thank you very much.